Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, hi, I'm Wendy. I'm a Chinese-born German living in Singapore. In my last video, I spoke about how I found my job in Singapore and what tips and tricks I have for job hunting. So if you haven't seen that one, feel free to check it out right here. One lovely subscriber from the community reached out to me and asked for more corporate advice because she's currently looking for a job. Before we jump into the video, I'd like to give you guys a bit of background information about myself and my current role. So I'm doing a business development sales role at my company, and I'm the most junior on this team, which means all my peers are directors, senior directors, or VPs and above. I'm very grateful and blessed to be able to work with these people because under this high-pressure environment, I'm learning and growing a lot. Hence, I would like to pass my knowledge on to you guys, and hopefully it's going to be helpful for you as well. So the first question I have for you is, what are you trying to optimize for? So when I received that question, I was first a bit confused, like, what do you mean? Like, what am I optimizing for? He gave me the advice, hey, you're in your 20s, so money will come, like, trust me, money will come. But what you should focus on right now, is it time, is it money, or is it learnings? I think in your 20s, you should focus on learnings. And I was like, hold on a second, he is right. Like, I should learn as much as I can. I should try to build my portfolio. This is an advice that I received from not just one, but two of my mentors. And I was like, hey, it makes sense. Like, during your 20s, you are allowed to make mistakes. No one expects you to be a specialist. They know that you just graduated from school. You don't have to try to come across as that perfect person that knows everything. Because essentially, you don't want to be the smartest in the room. Why do I say that? Because if you're the smartest in the room, then what else is there for you to learn? You want to learn and observe as much as you can. You're basically a sponge trying to soak in all the knowledge and all the skills from other people to build your own portfolio. How do you ensure that you will get invited into the next meeting if you're not really adding value directly in that moment? So my tip is write briefing docs. If you're able to add value, which you should always be aiming for, then you will get invited to the next meeting. This is a good muscle to develop because executives, busy peers, they don't have time to read about the company prior to the meeting that you will have with them. So if you're that person that writes this one-pager for the entire group to read before they get into the meeting, then you would be the hero. What it does is that it's preparing your peers for this meeting. And they will probably go into this meeting feeling like, hey, I know enough to navigate a simple conversation with them. And what happens during the meeting? During the meeting, since you're probably not the one that's leading the meeting, you should write notes and distribute it to the team afterwards. Because this will help everyone to remember the conversation you had today, because no one is going to remember what happened during this meeting 3 weeks down the line. So add value and make an impact. The second advice I have for you, which I also live by, is it's more important who you work for rather than the company that you work for. Obviously, a good company name can also set you up for success in the long run. However, especially at the beginning of your career, you would want to make sure that you follow the right manager. Because the right manager will groom you, will grow you, will show you things, will teach you things, and will basically set you up for success. So keep in mind that you would want to work with someone that you feel comfortable with, a manager who you can build trust with, a manager that is a mentor. That's what you want to look for, especially at the beginning of your career. A mentor doesn't necessarily have to be your direct line manager. It could also be a peer or like someone from another team. As long as they're willing to groom you or like give you some of their tips, you should be thankful and try to build that connection with them. This also leads me to my next point, which is feedback is good. Try to harvest as much feedback as you can. Try to get constructive feedback from your peers, your manager, and whoever you work with cross-functionally. I used to think that feedback is bad because you're doing something wrong. However, this is not the way we should approach things. Constructive feedback will help you to improve your skills, and that will set you up for success in the long run. Because you should be worried if you don't get feedback. If you don't receive feedback, that means people have given up on you, and that's not where you want to be. I remember on the first day when I joined this company, my manager was like, hey, there will be a restructure. People are going to move in and out our team, but I will still stay your manager. And I'm like, what does that mean? So I was hired for this role, but after that restructure, my manager took over another team. And so I followed her on that team. However, my expertise was somewhere else. And restructures are situations that you would experience multiple times in your corporate life. And these are totally normal. At first, I felt very threatened, and it was very scary to me because I never experienced something like that. And I thought, restructure, like, isn't that something bad? Like, is the company going downhill? No, that's totally normal. Restructures happen in every company, and it's healthy because it helps the company to have the right people to grow the company and to move forward. So during this 1.5 years that I've been at this company, I realized that restructures are very common, and they happen maybe like every year, every 2 years, depending on your company. Don't be scared of restructures. If you're doing your job well, you don't have to be afraid of restructures. Hence, I'm saying you should actively ask for feedback, because you don't want to wake up one day with a surprise like, hey, you were laid off because of a restructure. I know in some cases it's not down to the individual's contribution, but still, like, asking for feedback doesn't hurt. In fact, restructures could be a good opportunity for you to learn from new teams, new managers, and new peers. It could also lead to new networks externally because the type of customers you're facing are different if you're in a sales role. Always be open to talk to managers and peers because you never know who's going to be your next manager. So always be open and have that conversation. You should always know what people are up to. And this is an advice that I received from at least 3 of my peers, or aka mentors. Let me ask you something. Who do you want to be at work? And this sounds like a funny question, but what I mean is, who would you like people to perceive you as? My manager once gave me this advice. Hey, I have multiple personas. At work, I'm your manager. I'm managing a team of 10. At home, I'm a mom, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister. So that naturally gives you different type of roles in your life. And where was she going with this? I didn't understand at that point. However, what she was saying is like, how do you want to set yourself up for success? So I was very confused back then, but now I feel like it makes sense because she's not necessarily saying that I should become a different person or that I should act fake. She's basically saying, you want to show up as your best self at work. Ideally, someone professional, hardworking, good at their job. Similar to what I mentioned earlier, that you should build the connection with your peers, your cross-functional managers. It also comes to build the relationship with your cross-functional peers because they will help you to move the needle. How I see it is, every team works in their silo. However, we are one system at the end of the day. We are one whole unit and we don't work without each other. So understand what your cross-functional peer needs to get done in order to get their paycheck. If you're able to find out the mutual synergies, then you'll be able to move the needle. Because what it does is that you're finding things that you both need to get done. However, how does it benefit your peer? How does it benefit you? If you can find mutual ground there, then you guys will be able to work together and get things across the line. Because what it does is it prioritizes things on the other side as well. You want to get your stuff prioritized, because if you don't get your stuff prioritized, it will never get done in a big corporate. Getting comfortable with your peers is one thing. Getting comfortable with people that are way above your level is a skill. One of the advice that I received is try to get comfortable speaking with executives as early as you can. Because in the end, these are also just human beings. Titles are just titles. In the end, no one really cares about a title. Maybe some people do, but in most instances, they just want to be treated as a human being. So as early as you can get comfortable speaking with these higher ups, the more successful you will be throughout your career. Because these are the decision makers. These are the people that make the call in the end. So you want to be comfortable with them. You want to be comfortable speaking with them. And I have to say for myself, like at first I felt very awkward about this. But the more I do it, the more comfortable I get, and the more I'll try to treat them as a normal human being. Because in the end, they are a normal human being, just like you and me. So why should we put them on a pedestal? But obviously, in the end, we have to be within our means, right? So once we had a negotiation training, and that guy asked us, so what do you think the difference is between a child and an adult? We're like, I don't know, what is it? So he was like, a child would just ask for what they want. However, adults wouldn't do that anymore. And I'm like, oh, he's kind of right. As a kid, you would always ask for what you want. Like, you would ask your parents if you can eat that cookie. And if they said no, you would start negotiating with them and say, why did you say no? And you would do it so long until they say yes. And so this is also how it should be in corporate. If you want that promotion, if you want to change your team, whatever you would like to get, just ask for it. Ask nicely and also show them what the benefit is for them if they give you what you want to get. So moral of the story, just ask for what you want. Sometimes that question sounds much more scarier in our head than it is, and you might not even get pushback. So why don't you just ask? And that is not just for corporate life, that's life in general. I realized like after I started doing that, so many doors open up for me because I was the one that was restricting myself. Anyways, next point. Try practicing stakeholder management as early as you can. You have to be able to manage stakeholders internally as well as externally. Manage their expectations. Tell them when the timeline is of when you will deliver something, and also when they will hear back from you. Because this will give people trust in you that you will follow up with what matters to them. So what I was uncomfortable doing at the beginning of my career is to communicate things with my manager. However, you should over-communicate with your manager, in fact, because in the end, your manager needs to know what you're doing in order to defend you from others. They need to be able to protect you from everything that's like coming to you if you don't have the capacity. And that's why it's so important for your manager to know what you're doing. Set up one-on-ones with your manager, keep him or her in the loop. However, whatever you do, make sure they know and they're across what you're doing. Trust me, you're not bothering your manager. Rather over-communicate than under-communicate. If this is your first ever corporate job, then this advice will hit home. Always look out for opportunities. Don't feel obligated to stay with this company forever, because a company can just lay you off like this. You should always have options for yourself. Always allow yourself to have a backdoor to exit, because essentially you're just protecting yourself. You wouldn't want to be in a situation where a company has layoffs and then you would get kicked out without any other opportunities lined up. I'm not saying you should jump into the next job as soon as someone approaches you. However, it doesn't hurt to speak with other people. And in fact, you should always speak to people. You should always be interviewing. You should always know what your market value is so that you also don't sell yourself undervalued at your current company. Always look out for new opportunities and practice interviewing, because even if you don't change jobs, you know what you're worth. And you know that this is not the only job that you will ever do. I used to think that I'm betraying my company if I go have interviews. But no, that's not the case. Everyone does that. And funny enough, this is actually an advice that I have received from multiple people at my company. At least like 3 or 4 that are way more senior than I am. And they are all saying this. So I guess you can trust this. Last but not least, no matter what you do it with conviction. Because if you don't even believe in your idea yourself, how can you make someone else believe in you? So do it with conviction. Alright everyone, thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you enjoyed this type of content, feel free to leave a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I shall see you next time. Bye.